Have you ever noticed how some people walk into your life and leave almost no trace? And then there's that one person, the one you weren't looking for, the one who arrived during a season when your attention was somewhere else, the one who somehow changed the atmosphere of your life before they ever changed your relationship status. What if I told you that many men completely miss the moment their future partner first enters their story? Not because they're blind, not because they're unlucky, but because they're looking for fireworks while life is quietly rearranging the furniture of their soul. And if you've ever felt like love keeps passing you by, if you've ever wondered why everyone else seems to find their person while you're still searching, then stay with me. And if something in this conversation feels strangely familiar, if it feels like words you've been needing to hear for a long time, consider subscribing. Not because of me, because sometimes the right message arrives at exactly the right moment, and you don't want to miss the next one. Now, I want to tell you something that took me years of working with people to understand. The men who eventually build the strongest relationships rarely meet their partner at the moment they feel most prepared. Actually, it's often the opposite. They meet her when life feels confusing, messy, incomplete, not broken, just unfinished. And that's where the first sign often appears, not through certainty, through disruption. Think about the last few years of your life. Maybe a friendship ended, maybe a job changed, maybe you moved. Maybe you woke up one morning and realized the version of yourself you'd been carrying for years no longer fit. Most men see these moments as detours, but sometimes they're invitations. Because before someone meaningful enters your life, something usually has to create space for them. And space rarely appears comfortably. A man spends years chasing one type of woman. Then suddenly he loses interest. He doesn't know why. A social circle changes. A routine falls apart. A dream he was obsessed with starts feeling strangely empty. Nothing dramatic, just enough discomfort to make him question where he's going. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many men pray for love while holding on to a life that has no room for it. No emotional room, no mental room, no spiritual room. They're still attached to old wounds, old expectations, old versions of themselves. So life begins removing things, not to punish them, to prepare them. And preparation almost never feels like preparation while it's happening. It feels like loss. It feels like confusion. It feels like standing in the middle of a chapter ending without being able to see the next page. I've sat across from men who told me stories that sounded ordinary at first. A cancelled trip, a failed relationship, a random decision to join a gym, a move to another city, a different route home from work. Tiny moments, forgettable moments. Yet months later, those same men would look back and realize that was the beginning. Not when they met her, before they met her. The beginning was the disruption. Because the first way God often introduces you to your soulmate isn't by bringing her into your life, it's by quietly changing the life she will eventually enter. And the frustrating part? You usually don't realize it until much later. You're too busy mourning what left, too busy questioning what changed, too busy trying to rebuild certainty. Meanwhile, something larger is unfolding beneath the surface. Not magic, not fate in the dramatic movie sense, just a series of moments that slowly move you toward becoming the man capable of recognizing the right person when she finally arrives. And that recognition, that's where things become far more interesting. Most men imagine they'll recognize their soulmate because of what they feel, a sudden certainty, an instant connection. A moment so powerful that every question disappears. But real life is rarely that dramatic, and honestly, that's exactly why so many men miss the second way God introduces them to the person they're meant to build a life with. Because she often arrives disguised as familiarity, not excitement, familiarity. Now be careful with that word. I'm not talking about the familiar feeling of chasing someone emotionally unavailable because it reminds you of an old wound. I'm talking about something quieter, something deeper. The feeling that you've somehow known a person longer than you actually have. You meet her, and nothing explodes. No soundtrack starts playing, no lightning strikes. Yet after the conversation ends, she stays in your thoughts. Not because you're obsessed, because something about her feels real. And that word matters. Real. A lot of men spend years confusing emotional intensity with compatibility. The relationship is chaotic, the communication is inconsistent, the attraction feels overwhelming, and because the emotions are strong, they assume the connection must be important. But intensity and significance are not the same thing. In fact, some of the healthiest connections begin with a strange lack of drama. Because your nervous system isn't fighting for survival, it's not trying to earn affection, it's not constantly wondering where it stands. It's simply present. And for men who have spent years in complicated situationships, confusing relationships, or emotional uncertainty, presence can feel almost boring at first. I've seen this happen more times than I can count. A man spends years pursuing women who keep him guessing. Then he meets someone kind, consistent, emotionally available. And his first reaction isn't excitement, it's confusion. Because he's never learned how peace feels. He's only learned how pursuit feels. So he mistakes calm for lack of chemistry. Meanwhile, the person who genuinely sees him is standing right in front of him. There is a psychological reason this happens. Human beings become attached to emotional patterns, even painful ones, especially painful ones. The familiar often feels safer than the healthy, which means that when someone enters your life who doesn't trigger your old fears, your brain may not know what to do with them. You keep waiting for the catch, the game, the disappointment, but it never comes. And slowly, something unexpected happens. You start relaxing. You start speaking more honestly. You stop performing. You stop trying to become someone else. You stop managing every word, every text, every impression. You become yourself. And that's when you realize something important. The strongest attraction isn't always the feeling of being pulled towards someone. Sometimes it's the feeling of finally being allowed to stop pulling, to stop proving, to stop chasing, to stop convincing. Because real connection has a different emotional texture. It feels like exhaling. And here's what fascinates me. Many men don't notice this immediately. They notice it later, weeks later, months later. They suddenly realize that conversations with her linger longer than conversations with anyone else. That they feel calmer after talking to her. That they aren't pretending around her. That she sees parts of them they've spent years hiding. Not because she's perfect, not because she's some fantasy, because she creates space for honesty. And honesty is where genuine intimacy begins. The second way God often introduces you to your soulmate is through a connection that feels strangely natural before it feels extraordinary. A connection that doesn't demand a performance. A connection that quietly asks one question. What if the person you're looking for is the person you don't have to become someone else to keep? And for many men, that's a much harder question to answer than they expect. There's another moment that happens before many meaningful relationships begin, and it's one of the most uncomfortable experiences a man can go through, because it feels like failure. It feels like disappointment. Sometimes it even feels like abandonment. But looking back, it often becomes one of the clearest signs that something important was changing beneath the surface. The third way God often introduces you to your soulmate is by allowing a false path to end. I know, nobody likes hearing that. Because when something ends, our first instinct is to focus on what we've lost. The woman who left, the relationship that didn't work, the future we imagined but never got to live, the conversations that stopped, the plans that disappeared, the version of life we thought was coming. And when you're standing in the middle of that pain, perspective feels impossible. You're not thinking about purpose, you're thinking about survival. You're trying to understand why something you wanted so badly wasn't meant to stay. I've watched men spend years grieving relationships that looked perfect from the outside. The attraction was there, the history was there, the effort was there. Yet something never settled, something never aligned. And because they loved the idea of what the relationship could become, they kept fighting reality. Not because they were weak, because hope is powerful, especially when it's attached to a person. But here's something I wish more men understood. Not every relationship that feels meaningful is meant to become permanent. Some people enter your life to reveal you, not remain with you. That's a painful distinction, because the heart naturally wants permanence. It wants certainty. It wants the story to end exactly the way it imagined. Life doesn't always cooperate. Sometimes a woman enters your life and teaches you what you deserve. Sometimes she teaches you what you should never accept again. Sometimes she exposes wounds you didn't know you were carrying. Sometimes she forces you to confront insecurities you've spent years avoiding. And when that chapter ends, it can feel cruel. Until enough time passes for you to see what actually happened. You weren't only losing someone, you were becoming someone. That's the part nobody talks about enough. Growth rarely announces itself. It hides inside heartbreak, inside disappointment, inside the plans that never happened. A man thinks he's grieving a person. Sometimes he's actually grieving an old identity, the version of himself who still believed love had to be earned through suffering, the version of himself who accepted less than he needed, the version of himself who confused potential with reality. And when that identity begins to die, it hurts. Because even unhealthy patterns can feel like home when you've lived in them long enough. I remember a man once telling me something after a difficult breakup. He said, "I thought I was asking God to bring her back." Then he paused. A long pause. The kind that comes right before a truth finally surfaces. And he said, "But if I'm honest, I think I was really asking to go back to the person I was before everything changed." That sentence stayed with me, because so many men believe they're mourning a relationship, when in reality they're mourning familiarity, they're mourning certainty, they're mourning the illusion that life was supposed to unfold according to their timeline. But sometimes, the ending isn't evidence that you've been forgotten. Sometimes it's evidence that you're being redirected, not toward perfection, not toward some fantasy where every problem disappears, toward alignment, toward maturity, toward a version of yourself that can recognize genuine love when it arrives. And here's where things become deeply personal. Because the final realization isn't about finding the right woman, it's about becoming the man who can finally receive the right kind of love when it finds him. And that's where most people have been looking in the wrong direction all along. I want you to imagine something. It's late, the house is quiet, your phone isn't buzzing, nobody needs anything from you. No distractions, no noise, just you and your thoughts. And in that silence, a question appears. Not the question you usually ask, not, "When will I meet her?" Not, "Why hasn't it happened yet?" Not even, "Is she out there?" A different question, one that most men spend years avoiding. Who am I when nobody is watching? That question sits at the center of more relationships than people realize. Because long before two people build a future together, each person develops a relationship with themselves. And that relationship quietly influences everything. The way they love, the way they trust, the way they handle conflict, the way they respond to intimacy, the way they react when someone truly sees them. Here's something that may feel uncomfortable. Many men say they want deep connection. But deep connection requires visibility, and visibility is terrifying when you've spent years hiding parts of yourself. Not lying, not pretending, just selectively revealing, showing the strong parts, the capable parts, the confident parts, while keeping the fear, insecurity, loneliness, and uncertainty locked behind a door nobody else gets to open. At first, that seems reasonable, protective even, but eventually it creates a strange kind of loneliness, because people can only connect with the version of you they actually know. And if nobody knows the real you, then even attention can feel empty, even admiration can feel hollow, even relationships can feel strangely distant. I've spoken with men who were successful, respected, attractive, accomplished, men who had no trouble getting attention from women, yet privately they felt profoundly unseen, because attention isn't the same as intimacy. Being desired isn't the same as being known, and the difference between those two things changes everything. This is why many meaningful relationships begin during seasons of self-confrontation, not self-improvement in the social media sense, not becoming richer, more impressive, more desirable. I mean genuine self-confrontation, the kind that forces a man to sit with uncomfortable truths, the kind that asks him why he keeps repeating the same patterns, why he keeps choosing the same emotional dynamics, why certain wounds still control his decisions, why certain fears still influence who he becomes around other people. Those seasons are rarely glamorous. They're quiet, private, sometimes lonely, but something important happens there. The mask starts getting heavy. The performance becomes exhausting. And eventually, a man reaches a point where authenticity feels easier than pretending. That's a turning point. Because the healthiest relationships aren't built on perfect versions of people, they're built on truthful ones. And when that shift begins inside you, something subtle changes. You stop evaluating every interaction through desperation. You stop treating relationships like solutions to emotional emptiness. You stop asking people to rescue you from parts of yourself you've never faced. Instead, you start meeting people from a place of wholeness. Not perfection, wholeness. A willingness to be seen as you are. And that's often when life becomes interesting. Because the more honest you become with yourself, the easier it becomes to recognize honesty in someone else. The easier it becomes to distinguish genuine connection from temporary attraction. The easier it becomes to notice the people who bring peace instead of confusion. And when that happens, you begin seeing things you couldn't see before, including the final sign that many men overlook entirely. The sign that's been quietly present through the entire journey. By now you may have noticed something. None of these moments looked the way most people expect. There was no dramatic announcement, no perfect timing, no unmistakable sign written across the sky. Just a series of ordinary experiences that only became meaningful when viewed together. A disruption, a connection that felt unexpectedly natural, an ending that made room for a different beginning, a season of becoming more honest with yourself. And that's exactly the point. Because the final sign isn't really about another person at all. It's about what starts happening inside you. The final sign is that your definition of love begins to change. Quietly, almost without you noticing. Years earlier, maybe you wanted someone who would erase your loneliness. Later, you wanted someone who would validate your worth. Then maybe you wanted someone who would finally prove that all your waiting, all your effort, all your heartbreak had been worth it. But eventually, something shifts. You stop looking for someone to complete your life and start looking for someone to share it with. That sounds like a small difference. It's not. It's enormous. Because when a man reaches that place, desperation loses its grip. The panic starts fading. The constant comparison starts fading. The fear that he's somehow running out of time starts fading. And in its place comes something much quieter. Trust. Not passive trust, not blind trust, a mature trust. The understanding that meaningful things often take longer than we expected. The understanding that growth and timing are sometimes connected in ways we can't immediately see. The understanding that forcing what isn't ready rarely creates what we're hoping for. And here's what I've noticed after years of listening to people's stories. The men who eventually build the strongest relationships often say something surprisingly similar. Not word for word, but close. They'll say, "I thought I was searching for her." Then they'll smile. A different kind of smile. The kind that comes from finally understanding something. And they'll continue, "But looking back, I think life was preparing both of us." I love that perspective because it's humble. It leaves room for mystery without abandoning responsibility. It acknowledges that relationships aren't simply found, they're grown into. And perhaps that's why so many introductions happen without us realizing it. Because if we recognized every meaningful moment immediately, we'd probably try to control it, rush it, analyze it, force it. Instead, life often allows understanding to arrive later, after enough distance, after enough growth, after enough reflection. So if you're watching this tonight wondering whether your person exists, whether you've missed your chance, whether everyone else is moving forward while you're somehow standing still, I want to leave you with something gentle but important. The chapters that shape your future relationship may already be happening, not in the places you're obsessively searching, not in the timelines you're measuring yourself against, but in the conversations changing you, the disappointments teaching you, the decisions maturing you, the quiet moments revealing who you really are. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest mistake isn't that you've failed to recognize your soulmate. Maybe the greatest mistake would be assuming that nothing meaningful is happening simply because you can't see the full picture yet. Because some of the most important introductions in life don't begin when two people meet. They begin when one person becomes ready to recognize what has been moving toward them all along. And if there's one thing I hope you remember after this video ends, it's this. Don't only pay attention to who is entering your life. Pay attention to who you are becoming. because sometimes that transformation is the introduction, and everything else follows from there. If this conversation stayed with you, if it brought a thought to the surface that you've been carrying quietly for a long time, let me know in the comments. Not the polished answer, the honest one. Sometimes a single honest sentence can tell you more about where you're going than 100 carefully planned ones ever could.